We are live. Hello, everyone. My name is Arcian, and I couldn't set up my equipment very well, but we'll do with this for now. Welcome to the Microwave Extravaganza Podcast, Episode 9. Viva la Statists. My guest today is, how do you pronounce that?
Anarchistul.
Anarchistul. So that's anarchist in Romanian?
Yeah. Or you maybe you can call me Mike if that's easier for you.
What, Mike, you say?
Mike, yeah, Mike.
I'm guessing that's short for Mikhail, huh?
Mihai.
Mihai. Oh, that's fine. That's fine. All right. Thank you, Mike, for coming on. So, last night was brutal. I'm really sorry about that. I wish we probably I think it really was. If I had given Andy your Facebook, I bet it would have been a lot better, because I think it was something to do with who. I think Hangouts might be designed so that way you can't share infinitum. You know, somewhat the host has to do it, I think. You know what I mean?
Yeah. That would explain the error I was getting. Like, they keep telling me I'm not allowed to join.
Yeah. Oh, Andy got pissed too.
I saw him. Yeah, he was pissed.
Yeah. Oh, and I felt really bad. I was trying to calm him down. I mean, after a while, Jay said, like, "Oh, stop apologizing. It's beta male." I was like, he's right, but I'm doing it because everyone's freaking out. I'm just trying to keep everyone, chill. I don't want to, so, oh.
Sorry, that was me. Sorry.
That's all right. So what's it like over there in Romania? How's it going over there? How hot is it over there, by the way? Is it cold?
Actually, it's hot. I have my AC on. Yeah, but the good thing in Eastern Europe, we don't have refugees.
Them Romanians and Poles, right? They don't fuck.
Yeah, and Hungarians.
Ooh.
Yeah. Well, actually, officially, our government said we're taking them in. They arrived here and got their shit beaten out of them on a daily basis. And they signed that they're going back to Syria. They realized it's a safer place.
Oh, for the refugees? The refugees felt safer in Syria?
Yes, it is safer in Syria for refugees than in Romania.
Oh my God, I love that. I love that. So I'm guessing they were given no welfare, none of the privileges that all these other states to give them?
No, they were given everything, except they were also given a good beating every day.
Oh, so everyone in Romania was like, if you fuck up, we're gonna fuck you up, like that?
Yeah, we didn't even wait for that. We just fucked them up. Yeah, you talk with the police to be 45 minutes late accidentally on purpose, and by the time they arrive, you are long gone.
They're just like, we're done. We're going back home.
Yeah.
I personally, I like that Poland still hasn't taken any in, though, and I think that's pretty good, isn't it?
Poland has taken a lot of Ukrainian refugees, actually.
Yeah, but I mean, that makes sense, though. They know where they're from. They know what they're all about. They're like, they can control that.
Yes. And when they arrived, they started working right away.
I mean, it makes sense. They don't come from a nation where they believe that women are the property of men. It kind of helps. But it really just. I actually was angry at the idea that Europe that some places weren't taking in refugees when I first heard about it, and I realized why. It was because the mainstream media really has not died off yet, because of one thing. I think one thing only: sports. Sports keeps that dying fossil alive, and so there's still people who watch it. And personally, I think if the mainstream media would stop lying about what's going on in the world, and the television were to find its place in the market, kind of like how movie theaters stopped trying to compete with television. Instead, they just became an event. They got the movies first. They would make it, really, really nice. You'd go there because you wanted to get out. You wouldn't just go there just because you felt like seeing a movie someday. I think TV could find its place, but they just don't want to. Sports, I think, are the only thing that are keeping television and networks alive. You know what I mean?
Yeah, I stopped watching TV, I don't know, maybe 10 years ago.
Just too much shit.
I got a call once from my ASP trying to sell me a TV subscription. I tell them no and I hang up.
You speak very fluent English, by the way. That's very good.
Thanks.
Yeah. I've been trying to learn German, although I've been sucking at it because I've been trying to do it with my friend, and unfortunately, he's only there half the week, and I could survive in Germany where they'd be like, "Oh, okay, he's a tourist," but that's probably about it. And I wanted to learn some Polish and some Russian, but
have you learned to seek Heil?
I think that's just what instantly happens when you look at Angela Merkel. It's like, okay, Hitler or Angela Merkel? Well, one of them had a brain, so it's not Angela.
Yeah, I actually hate them both.
Oh yeah, I do too. I'm just saying, lesser of two.
Not for like the Jews, but he was such a fucking idiot.
Hitler?
Yeah, and the way he managed the country.
You don't mind that he killed the Jews?
Let's just say I'm not really allowed in my country to say my opinion about the Holocaust.
Oh, okay. Well, so, okay. But what did he actually do wrong with the government, though? Like, specifically?
Basically, it was his social and economic policies. He had this idea in his head. Like, he hated when a corporation would not go gather some resources, like, I don't know, an iron mine, because it wasn't profitable. But so he went there and insisted it must be done. All the resources must be mobilized. But that's ridiculous, because if it's not profitable, that means you're expending more than what you're getting. So he was wasting resources.
Why not just have the government go there if they really need a resource that bad, right? Why does he need to?
But if you really need it, then it would be profitable.
Yeah, it would actually.
If it's not profitable, it's a waste to exploit it.
Yeah, because then all of a sudden you're spending. You're going to actually end up losing more, and like you know.
Yeah. And also that thing he tried to raise the birth rates. He would give you a house that you had to pay for, right? You had like a loan.
Yeah.
But if you had a child, like 25% would be removed, and once you had 4 children, your loan was gone. But this is stupid. It's like we are loaning to ourselves, and somehow we get a profit. Like, what is this?
Yeah, it's there's a certain degree, because I think that to a certain degree we can somewhat say we can avoid a small amount of economic law if it benefits a country, but that's only in like small amounts. I think like we could try to find alternatives to trade with China. It might reduce our net profits as a country by a small amount, and that can be okay. But then there's some things that some countries do that are just economically illiterate, and I keep telling them nothing is free. So if you just ignore the rules of economics in a very severe way, economics is going to smack you in the back of the head and just say, no, I still exist, and you're going to die. All you people are going to starve to death, because this is not how math works. It's really math at the end of the day, isn't it?
It as just having like 4 people, the 4 of us are going to pay in some program to promote, to raise the birth rate. But it's like we are paying ourselves. It's like you're eating from yourself and expecting to get fat.
Yeah, I mean, why not just do something that might make the country a little more wealthy, so that way people have more money to have more kids. Encourages with with something that actually is economically feasible. Not try to shoehorn in your own beliefs about how the economy should work if the world was all nice and dandy, right?
Yeah, all they're doing is they're taxing the people, then giving back to the people, minus a cut that the government takes. So
is that part of the reason why you're an anarchist?
Yeah.
The way
not fully. I mean, I could be against welfare and social programs and still be a statist.
Yeah.
I'm talking just about raising the birth rates, like what Hitler tried to do. It was Absolutely, like it makes no sense a 5-year-old should be able to figure it out.
Yeah, well, it does. Yeah, as long as you explain like the direction that the money's going in, the 5-year-old will be like, "But that doesn't make sense."
Yeah.
But okay, so you originally responded to my video, and Kapistan, a nation without introspection. So would you mind just laying down some of the biggest disagreements you had with that?
I don't quite remember your video right now. I know you talked about, I think, national defense and degeneracy mostly.
Yeah,
Was it?
and
Yeah.
also, and also
Uh-huh.
and also the belief that a states in which a state of being in which a nation would have no government, and in order to keep someone safe, you would hire private security to protect the land you own. I saw that as being essentially many little monarchies, little landlords here and there. Yeah.
But there's a big difference. A monarch has a monopoly to tax and make the rules. Whilst in my version, I mean, he maybe just be the business that gives you the service of enforcing the rules, but he may not necessarily make the rules, and he can also at any point in time be replaced, and the clients go to a different business.
Yeah, I think so, but I think that would almost sound a little bit like a country failing. And if a country allows for free movement, someone could just leave that country run by said monarch, and then just go somewhere else. It almost is a business unto itself. Taxes could be, in a way, it could be seen as like, oh, you live on my land, you can pay rent. That could almost be a form of tax in the way I see it.
Even like monarchy is a step forward from democracy,
Step forward?
Yes, because you see, in a monarchy, you own the country and you can leave it as an inheritance to your children. Mm-hmm. But in democracy, you are just a temporary caretaker. So imagine an analogy. What if I give you a home, a house that is yours to keep? You would take care of it, invest in it, so you can leave it to your children.
Mm-hmm.
But if you're, I don't know, owning it for 4 years, or maybe you can get another 4 years again, if you get reelected, you would try to extract as much wealth from it as you can, destroying all of its value in the process.
Well, what if we had it where everything would be based on all the taxes in the U.S. were based on sales tax. You would it would just be an extra price added on, and that the government would use, but there was no such thing as property tax. I think out of principle that would look like you are the owner of this home.
Yes, but democracy operates under legal and moral relativism, so you never know when that may change.
That's true.
So I never trust the government. It's like cancer. You try to get it to a small amount, but it will grow back again.
I think so to a certain degree, but I think that if you have a setup that's well done, like our founding fathers originally did, you can push it back. And personally, I think the biggest reason why it didn't get pushed back was that after the slaves got freed, a lot of them were more impoverished than the white people. Of course, they were much wealthier than they are today, but at the time, compared to the whites, they knew that they came from an oppressive world. So, and I don't think the founding fathers took that into account. So when they were freed, I think one big problem was that they were told the Democrats knew that they couldn't, get them back into chains, so they decided to put them in chains of leisure and comforts. You know what I mean? Where they would just give them free shit, but they would take from that same stuff. Kind of like Hitler's economic policy. They would give them completely economically illiterate welfare, and this welfare caused laziness, but it didn't show them that it would bite them in the ass later. And so nowadays you see a bunch of people in the Black community, primarily in Section 8 housing, and those people always vote for bigger and bigger government because that's where they see their money coming from. They don't imagine themselves being the owner of a business. They don't see themselves being being a lot of things,
So you mean the blacks were given welfare? They
Yes.
became socialist and voted for bigger government.
Yes.
but they're like 12% of the population.
Oh, I know.
I mean, it's not just them, you know.
Oh yeah, absolutely. But also, there's also the Latinos, and think about how many people we import from the third world all the time, and we tell them
Latinos
about.
are, Latinos are a fairly new problem. Like for a long time, U.S. was 90% white, and it's still the government keep getting bigger and bigger.
Oh yeah. Well, and also Democrats know how to abuse. They know how to abuse human ignorance and tragedies like the Great Depression. I mean, we saw a lot more. We saw Roosevelt's New Deal came right at the Great Depression.
I don't know about this New Deal, but I know both depressions were caused by the central bank. One time they printed too much money and the other too little.
Yeah, yeah, they did. One time it was like so much money that it became useless, and then the other time, there wasn't enough to become distributable. But the thing is that when the Great Depression hit, President Roosevelt introduced something called the New Deal, which was a bunch of government programs to get people working. But we all knew that it was just he was a real hard socialist. He really didn't care too much about his own nation. People oftentimes hated Roosevelt more than anyone else. In fact, the only way we actually got back into it was that private and military arms companies started producing massive weapons once we entered the war. The war effort is what got our economy booming again. But by then, a lot of American values had been subverted. And the black population, even though there was only about 12% of the population in the U.S., that same black population was sympathized with. So when the blacks kept asking for more welfare, people were emotionally distraught about the slavery and about the mistreatments. As we started to realize that racism wasn't good, there were always people out there who were subverting that. And I even had Donovan Warland on yesterday, and he talked about how before the modern black problem came around with a lot of broken up families, there was always a mafia. There was always a black people mafia. There's always a mafia of different families of black people who were affluent, who actually sold drugs. They not just oh yeah, what's up, my nigga? You want some drug? More of the Al Capone-ish kind of guys. They ran booze lines. They ran the unions. They ran. They oftentimes built the bridges. And they oftentimes partnered with the Irish mafia, and those same people had deep connections with the Kennedys, and so a lot of the corruption in the U.S. actually came from the mafia, going more legit and going into politics to force people. Realizing that the government was a great tool to enforce their will.
Yeah, and all that mafia wouldn't have happened if drugs were legal. I mean, imagine trying to start a bread cartel. I mean, you could not provide competitive prices being the mafia, because you have all this overhead with guns and things like that.
Yeah, I know. But I mean, even then, I would say it depends on just how in demand a certain product is. Like, I think weed is something that should be legalized in the same way alcohol is legalized.
I claim it is legal, no matter what the government is saying.
In my opinion, I don't think you should be allowed to sell to kids. I think that's manipulative and wrong. I think that's disturbing because that kids aren't going to make smart decisions and they look for instant gratification. I think that's very manipulative. I think it's almost as bad as pedophilia because in pedophilia...
Yeah, but who's going to sell drugs to kids? I mean, it's not like they carry a lot of money around with them.
No, but they do carry enough where they're a more consistent customer, and there'll be a long-term one as you can get them, young. I think that there's that, but I do think we could win the drug war. I actually do.
Really?
Yeah.
Stop drugs.
Yeah.
Well, I saw this chart showing the U.S. spending on the drug war and keep getting up and up and up to trillions, and the amount of drug use didn't even budge. It stayed around 2% all the time.
Yeah, but you want to know? I think what is the problem that nobody wants to acknowledge? Nobody wants to acknowledge the fact that part of the reason why it's easy to get around the drug war is because Mexico and Latin America in general, they, other than like places that are failed states like Honduras, they have extremely high gun restrictions. Think about that. Think about the cartels. I mean, in Colombia, they're very anti-drug. There's very little sales anymore that aren't to other countries in Colombia itself. Domestic sales of drugs in Colombia are very, very low because they are sick of the Escobars, the Calis, all these different cartel crime families. They hate them. But the thing is, the gun control there is pretty high. If you're a military officer, you can get full auto machine guns. But if you're not, and if you're police, same thing. But if you're not, but if you're civilian, you can't get a whole lot. Mexico has literally one store in the entire nation that is actually, I kid you not, that actually allows you to buy guns. One, just one. They can't advertise on TV, and you have to have a lot of background checks before you can even get there, and a lot of other qualifications. So and yet the cartels they get guns anyway. You can build guns in your backyard. You could just take an AK-47, a semi.
Yeah, I saw people in the third world with like basic machinist tools. They were carving out 9mm assault weapons and rocket launchers. It's so easy to build a gun.
Yeah, but the thing is, if you're a civilian, you're by yourself. You're one person. If you witness a crime, you're one person. The government doesn't give a fuck about you if you're one person and you have a gun and you bought it and you made it illegally. They'll arrest you right there because they'll be like, I don't care. You're not part of the cartel. They won't fuck with the cartel because they're a group of people. They're organized. And so you can't buy a gun. You fuck with the cartel. If you're one dude versus the people who put other people in the walls of houses that are abandoned, wrap you in plastic and throw you in with a bunch of other dead bodies. These are the people who decapitate you and put your head on a stick. These are people who will hang you naked upside down from a bridge. These are people who pour acid on your girlfriend's genitals while you watch. These are animals. Yeah, so I think that if people had more gun rights in all these nations, they'd be less scared to report it to the police, or even take care of it themselves and fight back. And then the cartel would start losing some of its power. Because think about this. The cartel doesn't want to sell to its own people. It will, because, that's just more money in their pocket. But they love us. They love the U.S. They love us because we're the big market. We're the ones that aren't poor. We're the ones that they want to sell to. And if they ever get caught, they can just hop right back to Colombia, Mexico, Venezuela, Honduras, anywhere they want,
Uh-huh.
Yeah. It's like it's safe zone. It's where they want to go, and the government's never going to stop them.
Yes, you cannot fight the drug war or control the guns. It's just way too easy to make, and the government just doesn't have enough personnel to do this.
Yeah, but I mean,
you could if let's say in your city that's not very big, and everyone's on board, and you all have guns, then maybe you can stop the drugs from coming in, but that's about it.
Yeah, you could also put down crime a lot easier if everyone felt safe enough where they could protect themselves to the police.
Do you know what the most peaceful period in mankind's history was, with the lowest rate of homicide?
What's that?
The Wild West.
Really?
It really is. Just look it up. Look at the statistics. The safest period in mankind's history.
Wow. And you know what? I think that's the reason why maybe Hollywood always tries to demonize that part of history as being wild, disgusting. People were doing all sorts of ridiculous stuff. People were murdering each other every day. Like, I think they're trying to subvert it to make it look worse than it was, right?
Yeah, and they also had private security.
Well, I don't think private security is a bad thing. I just think that, I hear this from people a lot. Like, why doesn't private security from Walmart, which, by the way, I've actually never seen it at Walmart, why don't they go over and attack, Fry's or something like that, or some other retailer, I mean? And I always think to myself, are you going to tell me that there's private security who's willing to go over to some other company and shoot them up, knowing that the U.S. government will put them down. Like they have like helicopters, tanks, tons of people with full autos. Like they have aerial drones. Like they're not going to do that. It's terrifying.
Actually, it's not worth it to attack your competitor. Like if you imagine you have a factory and you want to hire an arsonist to burn down your competition's factory.
Yeah.
That's a very bad idea, even if it works. Because if it all goes well, you may find yourself with some new competitors on the market that will compete even better than the previous competition.
Because they were already competing, but now they have one less person to compete against, huh?
Yeah, and this will invite more people into the market that may have better ideas.
Yeah, but the one thing I'm scared about is corporatism coming out of capitalism when you don't have a forcible mechanism to separate them. Because, a lot of people say, well, the market will always regulate that. I think that's only so true. Because in my opinion, I know you disagree with me in this, but in my opinion, in order to sometimes break up a company, sometimes you got to realize some people will just go to one particular company, even if they offer inferior products, because they know how to manipulate the minds of people. People are very emotional, and often it's very easy to manipulate. I mean, we all know McDonald's isn't really good for you, but look at just how much money they make, because they know people like comfort. They like convenience. It's easy to stuff your face with food, and it feels good, so people don't always make rational decisions. I'm not saying you shouldn't allow people to. I'm just saying maybe like, you should beat the crap out of the person who manipulates the innocent child who doesn't know any better, but give the child the ability to say yes or no. You know what I mean?
Yeah, I know what you mean. Like I have a friend who is an AMD fanboy, and me and another guy told him, do not buy from AMD. Their quality is shit. Buy from Intel and Nvidia. But did he listen? No. He took his new PC 3 times back to the shop to get fixed, and each time it like takes 2-3 weeks. He wouldn't listen.
Oh, yeah. And I mean, you got to allow people to be stupid. I think if you can't allow people to be wrong, then you're a tyrant. But if you knew that same person was, taking advantage of your friend's stupidity and was specifically doing things that were dirty to try to manipulate him, to get him to keep coming back? You know what I mean? Like maybe if he went to another, like maybe like telling him, oh, you'll save some money if you sign up for this deal, this contract, and if you sign up for this, you have to just come back to us and no one else. And if you want to get out, you have to pay more money. If you knew he was doing something like that to try to trick him in, don't you think you should have the right to kind of kick his ass?
Well, if you signed contract, you signed it. You should have read it. That is your fault. Yeah. I mean, people could fall off bridges because they're stupid. Like, what do you want to do about it? Seriously, what can you do about it?
I think to a certain degree you can tell people there's just some contracts that are very manipulative that just should not be allowed to be signed because they don't give they take away the user's ability to opt out. I mean, what they don't have an end in sight. You know what I mean? Like, and think about what about people with severe mental illness who are going to be taken advantage of? Do you think we should at least be able to say you cannot have a person who has mental illness sign a contract that prevents them from opting out of the contract's desires at a certain point in time?
So if the contract is absolutely ridiculous and you want to opt out,
yeah.
Actually, in Ancapistan, I believe I have a solution.
Yes.
Because the judges would be independent, and the only way they would be paid to be judges is if they have a very, very good reputation. And should they give a green light to these kinds of contracts, their reputation may suffer, the public image. So they have some incentive to say, okay, this contract is so ridiculous, it is invalid.
Yeah, I do see a bit of a problem with that, though, on an ideological stand. If you have judges in a private world, that either means you do have a government because now you have the ability to have someone have authority over you, or the judges are kind of just someone you choose to listen to.
Well, it's like that guy Stephen Hawking. You know, he's an expert. He's an expert on black holes.
Yeah.
So, do you have to listen to him? Is he the government?
No, but I mean, how do we know that that judge is able to make a contract you signed null and void if it's just your choice? What if the other party that made you sign the contract says, "I don't want to go to this judge"?
Well, because they are seen, just like Stephen Hawking, whatever he says, until proven wrong, it is seen as correct. Same with these judges. If they give their opinion and it leads to conflict, then they will not be chosen again. They will not be listened to again. And the defense agencies, this is like their warrant. You know, if they want to come into your house, they need a warrant. This would be their warrant.
Oh, really?
The sheer weight of the judge's authority, because of his renowned for giving wise opinions, is what gives the defense agencies legitimacy. So if the defense agency would enforce a stupid contract, they would lose legitimacy, and that would be a big problem.
I guess to a certain degree. What do you think of this though? That even if there's no law to enforce it, there should be like a culture of nationalism. Because I personally would rather have the drafts. Like the thing is nowadays, I think that in offensive wars it should be completely volunteer. I don't think that we should be able to enforce a draft on an offensive war, because I think that could lead to the government using us to be corrupt. But I think in a defensive war, even though most likely people will volunteer, let's say they didn't, I think that in order to live in a nation, you should have to be willing to defend that nation if it comes under attack in a defensive war.
Drafting is not effective. I've heard some military generals, experts, I don't know what they were, saying that when you draft soldiers, they are pretty useless because they don't want to be there. I would say you would need paramilitary, like people who, like I've seen in Poland, they go on a 7-day training camp, a military training camp. Men and women, they go there, they go through hell on their own coin as well, and out of their own will. And I think if you have a population like that, then you don't need a draft for a defensive war.
Yeah. Well, I'm saying, like, if not enough people were volunteering to defend the nation.
Yeah, but you also need incentives for people to do paramilitary training.
Well, I mean, I think that you could do both.
And for that, you need them to have a very high time preference. Like, their time preference is so high, they would think 30 years would be too old to fight, but I don't know, 10 years into the future, and think, well, what if we get invaded? No, I'm gonna train myself so I can defend my property, my family, my friends.
Yeah, I mean, but I think that you could I think that that's a carrot and a stick. You got to have a stick too. I think that's one of the biggest reasons why I disagree with the idea of no government. The government, I think, at least lights a fire under people's asses. I think that the government could say everyone we draft will get a minimum of this as a reward, but we're gonna say if you do not fight, you're gonna regret it because we'll put you in prison and stuff. But I think that we could also say if anyone works harder than other people, the harder you work, the more benefits you'll get. Like we might help pay for your tuition and stuff like that. But you have to have higher and higher ranks. So the harder you work, the more incentive there is. But everyone has to work, has to defend the nation. by law, and if you don't, there's going to be negative consequences for not taking action at all. Like, what do you think?
Well, your carrot. I mean, the government giving rewards. I mean, the only reward the government can give me is my money back. So that's not really a reward.
Oh, true.
As for the stick, well, the enemy invasion is enough of a stick,
Sometimes, but I mean, sometimes there are always assholes out there like, come on, man, don't be hateful or tolerant. Now I got to go to like a party and bring my guitar for the fire. There's always some asshole at a party who doesn't know how to play guitar, but always brings it to the campfire. You know what I mean?
Yeah, and do you want to spend money on training and arming these people that do not want to fight? Will probably stay on the side and run the first chance they get.
What about rewards like with private companies that are incentivized by the government, like the government say keeping track and records of high valor and stuff like that, and then maybe companies saying, oh, you earned the star when you were over there, oh, we voluntarily would like to help, you know what I mean? But we agreed with the government to watch your performance and your ability to protect others, because then it wouldn't be just giving your money back. And when you think about it, money is kind of a cycle. It's like blood. It goes in and out of all different wallets, and in order to keep...
It's just a medium to exchange.
Yeah.
I
think that kids have a bad view of money, because I think that they're either told it's disgusting, it's evil, it will corrupt you, or they're told
it does actually. It's not the money that corrupts you, it's inflation. And I really wanted to talk about this related to degeneracy.
Yeah.
So here's what a lot of young people do.
Yeah.
The first chance they get, the first job they have, they take out a loan and they buy a house.
Mm-hmm.
Now, why would you do that? I mean, at first glance, it does not make sense, because in the long term, you would be paying more for that house, right? Because you pay interest on your debt.
Maybe in investments. I don't know.
No. The reason they do this is because of inflation. You know what inflation is?
Yeah, it's where you have more of one thing that doesn't actually have value by itself than the thing that gives it values, and usually it's money. Usually you print more money than you have resources, to the point where it becomes too divisible and it's worthless.
It actually goes like this: if you have 10 apples and $10, and that's your entire economy.
Yep.
You print 10 more dollars. You have $20 and 10 apples. Your apple price has doubled, but you're not any richer. You just doubled the number of dollar bills.
Yeah.
But what this happens, I mean, your income would double as well, right?
Yeah.
You'd be paid twice as much, but your savings, they are cut in half. You see?
That's true. Well,
this is why people do not today save money to buy a house. Before, almost nobody would take out a loan to buy a house. Only the poorest of the poor would fund this through a loan.
Oh, okay.
Today this is the norm. This is why you take interest, because given a 2% interest rate of 2% inflation rate over 5 years, you would have about a 10% inflation. So your debt, the interest you have to pay each month, is 10% less practically.
Yeah. Do you think that we should have?
Yeah, and there are a few other economic effects. What you can do with a house, you can do with investments. You can leverage your investments. I don't remember exactly how this goes, but if you say you have your savings and you finance to you create, I don't know, shoes, right? And you get a 10% return on your investment for each shoe. If you invest $100, you get back 110. But if you finance this through inflation, through debt, because of the inflation, you would get actually more back, more than 10%. Well, because as you get your investment back, inflation starts to creep in, and what you initially invested seems very little. What you're getting now, it seems very big.
That's true.
Yeah. So the investment, whatever you invested now, is decreasing. The money you're getting now, your income gets bigger and bigger
Would you
in
say,
dollar bills, not in actual wealth that you're receiving. You're still receiving the same amount of wealth.
would you say that it would be okay to add on $10 more to said economy if it wasn't in the form of dollars, but in the form of cents to make it more divisible?
What?
Because money has to be, in order to work, money has to be divisible, so that way you can buy smaller quantities of the same item. So imagine like that $10 economy, 10 apples per dollar, 10 apples, and what if you also added on the equivalents to another $10, but you didn't do it in dollar bills, you did it in change, and it wasn't distributed. It was kind of like, able to be exchanged at banks. So this,
No, it's the same thing. I mean, you can exchange, you can take out dollars and put in cents. That's not inflation. So and you still divided the money.
okay, good. So okay, because inflation would be you put more bills and more change into circulation, but what I would be, but that's not the same thing as saying like, oh, now we've made more money, but it's not in circulation. It's just able to be there in case we need to divide and multiply. Like we have $100 bills that may not be in circulation, but if you want to exchange your 100 singles for a one bill, you can, right?
I see the problem. I think what you're talking about is the economy keeps growing, right? So eventually you will have 100 apples and you still have $10, and that's a problem.
Yeah.
But what you can do is just print out a new currency. You exchange $1 for 10 new dollars. 1 versus 10. So you divided it. You solved this problem where you could buy a car with 5 cents, right? Now you created 50 more cents.
Yeah.
The amount of bills is increased, but they're actually exchanged, right? They're exchanged with other bills that are worth less. That's not actually inflation. That's dividing up. It's like taking a dollar bill and cutting it in two. That's not actually inflation.
Yeah,
It's
you're just
with all of them.
yeah,
So no one's savings are affected. They can always exchange their savings with for the new dollars.
yeah. And then that's just that's just making the amount of money that there is have an equilibrium to the resources. It's basically just balancing out currency.
Yeah, it would not cause any distortion other than the fact that you have to exchange these dollars, and it's kind of a little annoyance, but that's it.
Yeah, you would probably go and say, okay, I have like on an official day, maybe you'd have like a week where everyone goes to the bank, takes their bank statements, and then they say, I would like to exchange all my dollars for $10 because nowadays that's how much my money is worth. They give you that, and then if you ever want to go back to the bank and exchange it for individual dollars, you would still have the same value of money, but the difference is now you can divide it.
Yeah, and as you surrender your old dollars, they get destroyed.
Yes, they get destroyed.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But that's not inflation. With inflation, you cannot just sit on your savings. If you have $10,000 in savings, you cannot just sit there and enjoy them. You have to keep getting more and more because they lose their value. This creates this feeling of insatiability. I want more. This materialism. Normally, people wouldn't be so materialistic. I mean, I cannot keep $10,000 in savings. I have to buy a car with it, and then after a few years, I have to buy another car, sell the old. I have to keep spending and spending this money immediately as I get it, because the moment it reaches my hand, that dollar loses its value.
Yeah.
Right away. So this is why you actually have degeneracy and a low time preference.
Because people know that their money's worth less and less, and I think that people really don't realize this, that the reason why inflation is so bad is because money is a measurement of value, but it's not value on its own. It has no value on its own. It is used to make. It's like the numbers on the side of a free weights. It's kind of designed that it's there so that way you would know what value is already on that free weights in the form of pounds or kilograms or whatever, whatever measuring, whether you're using metric or imperial. The number is important, but that's just a measuring tool. Money is a measuring tool to the value, and that's why I think people need to. I think like kids need to know that money should not be the goal of your life. Money should be something you pursue, so that way it gives you the freedom to do what you want.
Yes, but yeah, that should be, but it's in actual fact, it's not how the world works when you have inflation.
Oh, I'm sorry.
Because you cannot just, I saved some money and now I'm going to stop. You cannot stop. You must keep getting more and more.
Oh, I know. No, I'm saying the goal shouldn't. No, I'm saying the goal of what gives your life meaning shouldn't be to get money from a philosophical standpoint. It shouldn't be though. Like my goal should be to avoid money either. It should be my goal in life should be to get enough money to live the lifestyle that I choose. To have freedom. To have the means to do what I want. So I continue to work and get more and more money over the years, and as I do, it gives me the money I need to support my family and to spend and to get what I do care about. You know what I mean? I probably don't care about on its own if it was just money. Oh, green paper. At least it's green in the U.S. Oh, how nice. It's really the fact that you now can own a house, you can have a wife, you can go to the gym and get a better body, you can eat cleaner food. That's what the money. That's the value of money. The freedom to do what you want. You know what I mean?
Uh-huh. Yes, but it is constantly chipped away by inflation.
Oh yeah, I'm not agreeing that.
There's also the law of diminishing returns.
Yeah, I know about that. It's an economic principle. I think more people should know about.
Not just in economics. Like even if you buy video cards,
Mm-hmm.
But installing 10 video cards is the same as having 100. You will not get any more frames per second.
Yeah.
Yeah, they don't add up.
Yeah.
And normally, if you keep investing, at some point you get diminishing returns, and it's not longer worth it to keep investing. You would then have other interests like philanthropy.
Yeah.
But in an inflationary economy, you cannot do that. You have to keep investing, and you can leverage, because you can take out a loan, and due to the inflation, like the loan loses its value, but your income increases in value. So you can leverage your investments to get a lot more.
Oh, that's true. That is true. Yeah. Yeah. Oh my God, this is a really good conversation. I mean, are you enjoying yourself?
I am. I do, however, want to get to talk about the law. I think this is very important.
You mean like the whole idea of whether statists are moral or not or whatever?
No, just about the law.
Okay. Yeah. Oh, yeah. Well, the reason why I'm talking about this is because I wish I would have test run this with you, because imagine how awesome it would have been if this was on Warski Live.
Yeah, I actually got 2 subscribers from that bullshit. I don't know how, but it happened.
Oh,
if I was on Warski now, I would have like hundreds of subscribers. My
God. You know what? I'm going to debate Jay Dreyer at some points. About monarchy versus democracy, because I'm not like for like the immediate democracy, like everyone votes on everything. I'm more of like representative democracy, and even then, I want it to be limited by a constitution. Like the way you have here.
It doesn't work. The constitution does not work. It never has. Come on, give it up.
I think it does. I think it does. I think it's just that it's not. It's all things are fallible, but a constitution is much harder to fail.
I was actually looking at some videos with people in Congress and the way they view democracy.
Mm-hmm.
The reaction was usually, "Oh, we don't worry about that. That's not important." I swear to God, they do not care. It doesn't matter if you have a constitution or not.
I know, but I mean, the thing is that's because they know how to manipulate the public. But I think that there should be more standards on who can vote. Who can vote? You know?
But you had to have property, and you actually basically be a taxpayer so that you can vote on what happens with the money. If you're a tax receiver, you don't get to vote. It's not your money. How can you vote on it?
Yeah,
It's like voting. It's like you voting on how I'm going to use my car. You know. But
yeah,
what happened? Look at what happened.
I think that the thing is we no longer have that. You see, I don't care that women want to vote, but I think they should have to own. I think they should have to own property or be, or live with someone who does, voluntarily. But the thing is, we don't have that anymore. We don't have property ownership be a part of it anymore. And personally, I think that that's wrong. I think we should have say you should have to own property in order to do that. And I think that mobile homes can be property. If it's land that you're living on that you pay rent to, I think that's property. You know what I mean? You can't be but you have to pay for it yourself. You know what I'm saying? Unless someone else is willing to voluntarily do it, like you can't be getting subsidies. Like, you know what I mean?
Why should I pay for my property if it's mine?
No. I'm saying like I'm saying like let's say you rent an apartment. You're paying for your property.
Oh, I'm paying to use the property.
Technically, yes, but you're using it. But beyond your landlord, it is still considered your property. Maybe there are limitations on it.
No. What my property, when I'm renting, my property is the access to the property for a set amount of time. I do not own it myself.
Okay, fine. It's not direct, but I still think that could count because if it's if it's dwelling and it gives you access to it and you're paying for it, you are still committing the action in which it requires something from you in order to have said thing. If that's the case, you're not going to vote for someone else to take your money to spend it on who doesn't want to work to do that. Like if you have to rent an apartment, you are still paying in order to you still have to go to work every day in order to get wealth that will allow you to have something you desire. And no one's going to want someone else to get your money that you want in order to be able to sleep and eat, to go to some asshole who doesn't work. You know what I mean?
I think I see what you mean. So I'm not going to vote for me to pay welfare, right?
Yeah, if you live in an apartment,
that's not how elections work. What you do is you yourself vote for others to give you money or some benefits or maybe trade restrictions for you that's in your favor, and others do the same against you. So you vote for what you want, others vote for what they want, and you each basically you're stealing from each other.
Well, I think
because what a politician does is it takes concentrated groups of interest. 5% of the population they want this, 5% want this, and you gather them together, and in the end, everyone loses except for the politician.
I guess I see what you mean. Like they think, oh, I'm just gonna steal from person A, and then person A says, I'm gonna steal from person B, and then person B says, I'm gonna steal from person C, and they don't realize they're all gonna steal from each other.
Yeah.
But I think that two things. Number one, I think that it would lower the incentive to go on welfare because people know that if that bill gets passed, they're gonna have to get taxed on that too. And that's going to be less money in their pockets. It will slow down the incentive, but I think what will kill it is if we get rid of a lot of welfare in general and we reinvest in the nuclear family. Not like government invest, but like, we take away a lot of the barriers to the nuclear family. Because I think when people, when they have a community, when they have a church, when they have a family, when they have like fraternities like the Knights of Columbus or the Freemasons, both of which I'm a part of, when they have these things that are provided without the government, they don't care about welfare. My family was really broken growing up, but I am so glad I was conservative because now I saw all sorts of people who grew up with the same kind of life I did, and they chose to get on welfare, and they're miserable. I feel a lot better because I've made it through the world despite my adversity. But I want to have a family someday of my own, and I want to give them what I never had: the feeling that you don't need to go to the government if you're broke, or something bad happened to you. As long as you don't misuse my money and you don't disrespect me, I'm always here for you. You won't have to get on welfare, in order to live if you really are struggling. Your father will be there for you. Or even if I'm not there for you, maybe you move to another nation, you can go to the church, or you can go to a secular charity group that cares about you. You know what I mean?
So you say you need a church or some other institution in order to have the nuclear family?
I'm saying those help. Come on, it's undeniable that part of the reason why Poland didn't accept refugees and is probably doing a lot better than a lot of other nations is because of their strong ties to faith. And maybe if not to faith, but maybe to a secular belief of independence. If you have the nuclear family I think is what enables everything else, not the other way around. But if you have that,
yeah, I agree. Yeah.
I mean, if you have do you come from a strong family, do you think? Or
well, my parents just got divorced.
Oh, I'm sorry to hear that.
It's okay. It's not a big deal. No, I was in my 20s. I'm still in my 20s. So it didn't affect my childhood or anything like that.
And so you still had a strong connection to your family, and you felt like if you were ever in trouble, despite this one divorce, they were together for so long that they'll still be willing to help you out, even if you need both of them.
Well, my parents right now, they do not like each other, but me and them, we get along.
Yeah. And you grew up in a stable household, and you know that you don't have to go to the government if you really need help.
Yes. Yeah. I can always count on them. Yeah, if need be. Yeah. But when you talked about the church and the nuclear family, and it came to my mind, I discovered this population recently.
Yeah.
They are in Ukraine.
Yeah.
They're not Ukrainians. They're actually, I'm gonna say, ancient Romanians. They ended up there. No one knows how, and they did not know about Romania. Can you believe it?
That's a little different.
Yeah, so someone walked over there, a Romanian, and started talking to them, and they speak Romanian, an older version, but you can talk to them. I can talk to them, and they did not know about Romania. They thought they were alone in the world.
That is so weird. Like, were they really got cut off from the world? Did they not even know they were in Ukraine?
They know they're in Ukraine, but they did not know about Romania and that we speak the same language. Actually, the first time they found out about us is when someone got a radio and they received some transmissions from Romania.
Are they really desolate and cut off from the world?
The thing is, the Ukrainians hate them. They cannot go to school because they get beaten up. So it's unhealthy for them to go to school. They are illiterate. They do not have a church yet. They are very religious.
Oh wow!
And there's a thing with them, from what I've read, how they marry is if they like each other, they run off for 2-3 weeks, and when they come back, no one can refuse the marriage because they're expecting a child.
Oh wow!
Yeah, and if your spouse dies, they do not get remarried.
Oh wow!
That's it. You only get one. That's it.
Oh,
they all have like 10 children.
Oh my God!
So yeah, they So the nuclear family is alive and well in their community, even without a church, even if they're discriminated by the Ukrainians.
Oh wow! So I gotta ask, what is the tension between the Ukrainians and the Romanians? Like, is there a whole bunch of, like, is there really a lot of severe tension between different Slavs?
No, I don't know of any tensions with the Ukrainians.
So it's just that one tribal group.
Yeah, it's with the Ukrainians. There's some tension because the Ukrainians think they own some of our land. It should be theirs. Yeah, I would actually, I would give it to them and have them become a minority in their own country, you know, because there's so many Romanians in that land, more than there are Ukrainians. So yeah, I would give them the territory, and then it would be voted back into Romania, and let's see what they have to say then. Yeah, watch them squirm like, but it is ours. You voted it out.
Oh, that's funny. There used to be like, oh, we tried it and we gave up.
Like, yeah. Come on, come get.
Yeah. Oh, I would love that. But there's one scary thing. What if the Ukrainian government tried to wipe them out, like all the Romanians in that area?
They did. In World War II.
Yeah.
So what happens? The Russians threatened to invade, and Romania gave up that land. Mm-hmm. And then the Hungarians decided, well, it's time for us to get some land as well. Oh. And they did kill some people. It wasn't like a lot, but they did kill, like they wiped out some villages maybe.
Yeah. Can we all just get along and love each other?
I don't know. I have some friends. They're Hungarians, but they lived in Romania all their lives, so their culture is Romanian. Mm-hmm. And I get along very well with them. I don't know what the problem is with Hungary.
Most likely it's just a territory thing, you know. Like, you know, oh well, you know, I want your land. I want your land. You know, it's kind of I think it's probably just a bunch of guys with nothing to do and too much money, just having a dick measuring contest.
Yeah, and I even saw this Hungarian trying to defend Hungary's claim on this land, and he would show a timeline, you know, in history, like Hungary was formed, and then it conquered this land. So like it stole it in the first place. We took it back, motherfucker. What do you want?
like boundary shifts all the time. Mm-hmm. The people who have claims to the land probably are just the like after the feudal times and after all the times that we warred for whatever land we wanted, because let's be honest, all land was settled and then conquered. At this point, you know, that's how it's always been with every country. In this day and age, when we don't want to do that anymore, how about whoever conquered this land keeps that land, and unless the other land wants to be sold by voluntary exchange, shut the fuck up, right? Mm-hmm. Yeah. Because at this point, you know, it's like at this point, if we want to transition out of the war-based phase, how will we all just suck it all up? You know, just it happened so long ago, and you're not going to change it. It's, you know, everyone did that. Oh, we had claims to this land because back then everyone almost lived on every piece of land in Europe back in those days, because everyone was going everywhere just to conquer new. What was the Roman Empire? I mean, that was literally an entire one centralized group of people getting more shit. They just wanted more shit, so they conquered it and told all the people with that shit.
Yeah, the Roman Empire was pretty great, you know. to pay your taxes, like today in your country, and I think mine, we work about half the year just to pay the taxes.
Yeah.
In the Roman Empire, you had to work 2 days a year to pay all your taxes.
Because they were just that low?
Yeah, they were that low. And that was enough for Rome to become an empire.
I mean, that depends on, you know, the year, because there is a whole bunch of different stages.
Yeah, of course. What they did, eventually they installed, I think they had democracy from the beginning to some extent. But they had democracy. and demagogues came along promising more and more.
Yeah.
And like, picture this: you have two candidates for election. One of them promises only what he can give you with the current level of taxation. The others, they promise you more than they can give you. They promise welfare.
What would you think about
Which one do you think is going to win?
the one who wants to give you welfare?
Yeah.
But
And
what if we had like a monarchy, like a monarchy where you'd have to earn it, in the U.S., but we had local governments to kind of regulate smaller areas. What would you do? You think that would simplify our system?
a monarchy where you have to earn it? Earn what?
Yeah, and local governments, local smaller governments, like the national governments would be one person, but there would be like I still believe in a constitution, so maybe there would be a constitution saying if the leader of our nation that we have this year does not do this, and this, they lose this privilege of being our king.
You mean like a business contract in Kapistan?
Yeah, kind of like that. Yeah, you're like, or even in the United States as it is, but we got rid of like the judicial system and everything like that on a federal level, and instead that was all like the legislative branch. Instead of that, if we just had one person, he made and he was limited in how many and what kind of laws he could make. And he also was told, if you do not make this and this happen, you're out. And you can stay in office your whole life, but the second you screw up, you're gone.
It never happens. Did it ever happen?
I know, but I mean...
With the state. I mean, I know it happened with... like you had in Italy, in Bologna. If you were a foreigner there, you had a few problems. Like if one of your compatriots left the city but owed money, you're gonna have to pay it. So they grouped themselves in these things called nations. They were more like insurance companies, right? And they had representatives and some voting, but they could not pass laws,
Well,
what they would do is they would negotiate. The purpose was for the debt collection, insurance for this, and also for the teachers. Back in the day, you had like a freelance type of education. And what they did is they basically created the University of Bologna. They negotiated as a group with the teachers. Then the teachers decided to do the same. And each side, there was like a balance. The teacher would have authority over what you need to do to get your diploma, what you had to do to study for the exam. And the students would tell the teacher, okay, you have to finish your course material in this amount of time, or else you get these penalties. So there was this balance formed.
Everyone has to exchange value in order to get value in return.
So it wasn't very like Ancapistan because you had people voting, but it worked very well.
It was closer to Ancapistan than like...
Yeah, it was very close, yeah. Pretty close in the way it functioned.
Do you think we could try something like that in the U.S. before transitioning?
Yes. So,
what about in Ancapistan on a state level? Just like here I live in Wisconsin, so maybe we could go someplace like Wyoming, test it out there.
So the thing is, why do you have this government? In order to
I believe it's I don't believe it's a the reason why I think that why I'm a minarchist is because I don't believe government is moral or immoral. I believe it's amoral. I believe its only job is to protect us from ourselves and I don't believe it's to tell us how we can have fun and how we can make ourselves happier. I think it's only there to tell us, do not do this, because this universally either breaks the nap or is something that will destroy something in
Yeah, that's very good, very good. But no,
wait, for
what
you?
a strange construction this is to me. I mean, people are assumed to be bad wolves that jump at each other's throats. So we need a third person, a third party, to resolve the conflicts between them. But that third party can be, what else can it be? But not another, if not another wolf, you know.
Yeah, but perhaps
So
that
that's
will.
strange. So you seem to have this assumption that social cooperation is something that constantly needs to be enforced. Otherwise, you're not going to have it. But that's not how the world works, because even in a civil war, you know, afterwards, social cooperation reemerges.
Oh,
So
I
it's
know.
actually the natural state.
Well,
But
I
of
didn't think.
course, there's always gonna be bad people, and you
Well,
need
there's.
some rules to prevent conflict and to resolve it when it happens.
Yeah, but that's the
This
thing.
is
Can I?
yeah. No,
I think that the point of government in my belief system is to be an entity designed to not have a dog in the fight. And
but
that's
it has a dog in a fight.
I know, and that's what happens when you subvert it. That's what happens when we got rid of, the need to be a landowner or some kind of or some person who owns property, or rents property, to dwell on, and to live in, and that I think subverted a lot of our laws. And I think that also the when we got rid of slavery, I think we got rid of it so fast we didn't have time to show.
Wait, so got rid of what?
Once we got rid of slavery, we didn't get rid of the racism attached there. And I'm not saying like, all y'all white people is responsible. Y'all need to pay back reparations. I'm not trying to say anything like that. But I think that when we still had racism around, I think that it may, and which caused black people to be reminded that even though we're out of slavery, we still get discriminated against. It gave the Democrats reason. Okay, maybe I'm sorry. I don't want to go off too much on a tangent. What I'm trying to make is, I think that what a lot of people don't want to acknowledge is that, and I have some problems with Jordan Peterson, but he's right about this, that everyone has the ability to be evil. Carl Jung is someone I really respect because he said, you could be good, but you should probably start with maybe you're just afraid of the consequences when it comes to doing something bad. A good person is not a weak person. A good person is a strong person choosing to act moral. But how do you know that you're good? Because you don't do anything bad.
If you ask a nice as jihadist if he is good, he will say, "Yes, I am a fucking saint. I am doing God's work."
Mm-hmm. Yeah, but you don't know that he's good, do you? Has he ever had the ability to do bad?
Oh, I'm pretty sure an ISIS fighter is a bad guy.
Oh yeah.
Even though in his mind he is a good guy, you see.
Yeah, you can always convince yourself that you're better than you are.
This, I think you're bad, but you think you're good. How can this, how can we disagree so much? And that's because we don't have a logical basis on which to determine what is good and what is bad.
I think that the non-aggression principle is something I respect. I don't think it's applicable.
No, that's not enough. I don't even follow it. I follow the law, the one and only law. And I really want to talk about the law. So I think right now what we have is not law. It is a pseudo-legal system. It is a perversion of law.
What do you think law is?
Law is okay. So let's start with law. Have you ever heard that saying? In order to conquer nature, you must first learn to obey it.
Yes.
Yeah, you know what that means?
It means you must understand it. You must understand why things are in nature, because it will conquer you if you don't understand why.
Yeah, it's like if you want to build an airplane, you have to obey the laws of physics and aerodynamics.
Mm-hmm.
This is what it means. Same thing with law. Like, what is the purpose of law? To prevent conflicts and solve them when they occur.
And give order to the
world. This is why I do not call this current legal system a legal system. It's something else. Like, you wouldn't call something, a machine that does not fly an airplane, right?
Kind of might makes right, I guess you could say.
No, might does not make right, but
I'm
you
saying
need
that's
might.
what I'm saying. That's the
The
philosophy.
thing about this saying, I think what people say, might does not make right, but you need might to make right.
No. I'm not saying. I'm not saying that might does make right. I'm saying I do think that's what we kind of use nowadays. That idea.
Yeah, you
Okay.
can say that. Yeah, but might does not make right, but you need might to make right. It's like that saying, the book is stronger than the sword. Yeah, that may be true, but without the sword, the book has no authority.
So you need might in order to enforce rights.
Yes, but you see, these are two different issues. First is the law, and then there's the enforcement of law. And first, I want to talk about the law.
Mhm.
So, if you take the easiest example, so all conflict is due to scarcity. If all resources are in hyperabundance, and the only thing you need to do to get something is to wish it, like in the Garden of Eden, this is the a very easy starting point. In the Garden of Eden, no one's going to fight over an apple. You have as many apples as you want. You can always wish more. But even in the Garden of Eden, there is some scarcity. There's scarcity regarding human bodies and their location in space. I only have one body. You only have your bodies. Bodies are scarce.
Mm-hmm.
And also, two bodies cannot occupy the same space at the same time. So even in the Garden of Eden, you would need rules to regulate who owns everyone's body and where can you place it.
So you own your own body, I guess, would be the
Yes,
first law.
you own your own body. And if you can imagine anything to the contrary, like if I do not own my own body and I am the first one to have acquired this body, right?
Mm-hmm.
So if I would say, well, you don't own your body, it's you and me who own your body, that would immediately create conflict.
Yeah, that would.
Yeah, so
Yeah,
anything to the opposite cannot be considered law. It does not fit the purpose.
that's true. I think that I think that. Oh, do you have my voice playing in the background?
Your what?
Do you have the stream up on your computer? Because
No,
I heard some feedback.
I don't know.
No,
Maybe there's some echo. I don't know.
oh, that's all right. But I do understand kind of some of the purpose of that. But I think that maybe some of this conflict maybe is good for human beings. I know it sounds weird, but and now I know I'm going a little bit into theology here, but I do think it does make some sense. It is said that in some books in Christianity that apparently God started the world over a ridiculous amount of times. Every single time he did, Adam never ate the apple, and didn't even start until then, and it, and it, and time didn't start until God restarted it the last time, and Adam ate from the apple, meaning, and that's when chaos came into the world. I think perhaps maybe it is something good that so there's some conflict and some scarcity because I think that's how humans are designed. I think we do need some kind of like purpose, some kind of scarcity to chase in order to make our life, in order to have a purpose in life. What do you think of that?
You need scarcity to have a purpose.
You need to have something you need to chase that isn't.
Yeah, I'm thinking now about in Star Trek, the Next Generation. There is this race that
Mhm.
the Q. They are basically gods. Whatever they want, all they have to do is think about it. And their society, like no one talks to each other. They're all so depressed and miserable because they have everything they wanted.
Yeah, and
Yet there is no struggle.
yeah, it is sad. And
But the world is filled with scarcity, so there will always be a struggle.
and I think that kind of makes it beautiful. I think
Yeah,
I think that why do you think the obesity problem is so much bigger in the U.S. and than it is in Europe? Do you have any clues as to your from at least your own experience?
obesity.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, uh, I'm not exactly sure how obese people are in the U.S. Like
Oh.
sometimes I see video like no one's obese, sometimes everyone's obese. But here, obese people, usually older women, they
Mhm.
get fat. But other than that, no, generally not obese.
Do you think it's because of that scarcity versus the
No,
US where the what was it?
I will talk to that when we talk about healthcare.
Yeah.
But right now, I want to finish with law.
Sure,
So
go ahead. Go ahead.
in the Garden of Eden, you only need two rules. Every person is the private, exclusive owner of their physical body. And if a body already occupies a space, you cannot occupy it yourself. Now, outside of the Garden of Eden, where you have overall scarcity, uh, in order to avoid conflicts, each good must be given to someone who has exclusive rights over it. So all you need outside the Garden of Eden are four rules. Number one, every person is the private exclusive owner of their physical body. We already talked about like anything to the contrary would create conflict.
Right.
Second rule is every person is the private owner of the nature-given goods that he or she has perceived to be scarce and put to use by means of his body. And here's the key point: before anybody else has done so.
Can you say that again? Can you say that last part again?
So I'll say it all again. Every person is the private owner of the nature-given goods that he or she has perceived to be scarce and put to use by means of his or her physical body. And
Okay.
now the key point here is before anybody else has done so. So you go into the forest and get some apples.
Yes.
If you say that I am not the owner of these apples because I'm the first one to appropriate them, right?
Mhm.
If you say me and the second person, we are the owner, well, that would immediately create conflict.
Right. In that case, that person should just say, "May I have some of your property?"
Well, if they're given out willingly, that's different. But you cannot say that
You have a right to. You can't say you have a right.
someone. Yeah, you cannot say, well, no, you don't own them. You and I own them. That would immediately create conflict.
Yeah, and it's just fundamentally not true that that if you go into that forest and you get the apples, that all of a sudden it belongs to the other person. That's pretty much that's Marxism, straight up.
Yeah, that's Marxism. Third rule is every person who, with the help of his physical body and his originally appropriated resources, produces new goods, becomes the owner of these products, provided that you do not harm anyone else's goods in the process.
So basically, if you destroy other people's property, you owe them replacements for it.
Yeah. So with my apples, I can make an apple pie, but as long as I do not hurt other people's property.
Yeah.
Anything else would immediately lead to conflict, so therefore is illegal.
That does make a lot of sense. That does.
Yeah. You can even imagine it. This would resolve problems like pollution, right? If you open a factory next to me and you pollute my air, and I'm the first one to appropriate that space with the clean air, and you pollute it, well, you've broken the law.
That could almost be enforced as kind of common law, like speeding. If you're speeding, even if you're speeding in your own area, if you're doing it drunk and if you're doing it in your yard, but you're doing it drunk and you know that by being drunk makes it more likely that you could go off into the road and hit someone without being able to stop yourself, you're putting me in unnecessary danger.
Yeah, it's not just that you have to damage their property, but if you put someone else's property in sufficient risk, they can come and stop you.
They can say you were putting me in unnecessary risk, and it's negligence. It's negligence.
Yeah, like if I put a shooting target next to your head, right?
Yeah, I don't have time to go into too much more detail about anything else because I got to wrap it up because I got to get doing stuff today. No offense, I mean you're a great guy, and even though our time zones are really messed up, it's actually been a really good conversation so far. But I do want to ask you this: have you ever read Niccolo Machiavelli's *The Prince*?
No.
It's a good book. It's something I really read if I were you. But one of the reasons why I had a big problem with Ancapistan is because Machiavelli talked about how he actually watched a lot of different nation states use mercenaries to their to achieve war ends, and as well as auxiliaries. And in both situations, they didn't work out very well, and it only seemed to work when you raised your own troops. What would you say to that?
What is an auxiliary?
An auxiliary is kind of like a third-party military that isn't private, but it's being loaned out. It's kind of like an allied part. You know, kind of like how if let's just say, I don't know, Sweden.
I think I know the Roman Empire used auxiliaries, like they would hire some other barbarian tribes to help them fight.
Yeah. Yeah, like it would be like if I was allied, like it would be like if Italy was allied with I don't know, Spain, and Italy ran out of troops, Spain gave them some of theirs. You know,
yeah,
loaned it out. But
here's how I
militaries are different because you pay them and they just go wherever the coin is, and they can take.
However, that's not always true. Like I think in the last days of Nazi Germany, the French were defending Berlin, and when Paris was attacked one time, the Swiss were defending it. While the French left, you know, typical to the French, they retreat. But the Swiss, they believed in their contract and they stood there, fought to the death. So not always true necessarily, but yeah, I get what you're saying. Here's how I view military defense in Ancapistan, and this is my original idea.
Yeah.
When you start a business, without a stock exchange, economies don't really develop, because you wouldn't want to take on all the risk of starting a business. So what happens is a lot of people go to the stock exchange and they all invest. So you split the risk into parts. So people are very risk averse. And if you build a business in Ancapistan, you know another government can come and attack. So what is almost necessary for you to do if you're thinking in the long term, and since you don't have inflation caused by the government, and the government always causes inflation. All governments have always been in debt.
Do you make a mutual bond? Is that what you're getting at? A mutual bond for a private military contract?
No, what you would do is you would pay for your little military. But of course, you're not alone, right? There are other businesses starting up, and they want to invest in their military. So they would all band together, and basically almost like what the government is doing, except like 1,000 times more efficient. Do you know the population of Germany?
I don't.
I think it's 80 million. Now guess how many tanks they have?
How many?
6.
Well, I mean, they're part of the EU, and that's a failing system, and I just don't see that helping.
No, they guess how many submarines they have?
One yellow submarine.
0. So the government of Germany is so corrupt. They're probably paying like $1,000 for a screwdriver. I don't know how they're spending their money, right?
I think
officially they spend 60% of what Russia spends, and yet they have nothing to show for it. But in Ancapistan, you will not have this kind of problem, right? You would have competing businesses, really smart entrepreneurs trying to give you the most defense for your dollars.
Yeah, I'm afraid of businesses being subverted and becoming monopolies. That's
no, that never happened in history, not even once. How can you say that?
A monopoly in a certain market, yeah. I mean, look at Carnegie Steel. Look at the oil companies. That happened during more laissez-faire form of capitalism in the U.S. And I know we're not. And I know we're not a capitalist nation. We're a nation with more capitalism than most other systems that our economy uses. So we're capitalist dominant. We're not capitalist pure.
I only know of one monopoly. They were producing aluminium ingots, and they only managed to keep that monopoly because they kept lowering the price. You know,
Yeah.
so that is the only way a monopoly can form. If you're so good, you keep the price low, then you're going to have a monopoly. And they had one for 50 years, but they eventually lost it. So monopolies, do not worry about monopolies, man. They are so easy to crash.
It depends because you could have multiple businesses all owned by the one person, and when that one person wants to
Yeah.
manipulate the market, they could just lower their prices in one area and raise them everywhere else, like Walmart.
Walmart is heavily subsidized. Even Google receives like $1 billion in subsidies
Well, I don't
every
think that's
year.
good, but I think that even then they could just like Walmart. What they do is they'll have that one thing that they sell. They'll like if they want to push someone out of the market, they'll just lower the price on that one particular product, and then they'll raise it only slightly in all their other products, like only a few cents to make up for the cost.
Mm. I'm not sure. However, I see them there. They have closed a lot of their businesses, right?
Walmart?
Yeah.
I didn't know that. I don't
Yeah,
know.
they closed shops in a lot of places. So it seems that they're losing this monopoly slowly.
Are they subsidized in Romania?
I don't think we have Walmart here, no.
Yeah, I was gonna say because that may be a factor to look over because if you
But
think that
they're not like necessarily directly subsidized. Like for example, the U.S. They build highways, and Walmart drives heavy trucks on them, wears them out a lot more than I would. So normally Walmart would have to pay a lot more to use the highway than I would. And they are subsidized in that way. It's not always direct.
oh, I get. Oh, so government roads.
So the highways alone is a huge subsidy. Like you could not run such a giant fucking chain on such a large territory without having the roads subsidized for you.
Yeah, but I would even say then there are limitations on what roads the government allows certain trucks to drive on, because they know that some trucks will wear those out faster than others.
There's a video on YouTube. You just have to look. Let the market eat the rich. Go search. It's the first one that pops up with a big fish. Just look at that video. It will clear it all out. I'm not as good at explaining as they are. And there's also some financial wizardy things they're doing with the money in the financial sector that also helps them. That normally they would not have such an advantage if it weren't for the government.
But
So yeah,
but
there is such a thing as an economy of scale, but there are also a diseconomy of scale. The bigger you get, the harder it becomes.
oh, I see the video. So let the economy
Yeah.
eat the rich. What was I gonna say? Thing I think about all this is that I think that do you really believe that's first off, I hate the term statist because statist kind of implies the idea that you enjoy the states, that you like the states, which kind of implies the motive. And I don't think that's always fair because I think that my motive for the statist, I just think that it's not something I want as because I don't like the idea of rulers. I think it's more something I feel that the world kind of needs the same way you would need a tooth pulled out of your face if it was cancerous, so that way it doesn't spread. It's a loss, but it's a lower loss. So I don't consider the word status to always be applicable. I think that sometimes it works, sometimes it doesn't. So but do you really believe statists, like all of them, deserve to die? Like me? Like
Sorry, but I do. You know how I view you.
how?
If you like this guy who is very good, a good guy at heart,
Mm-hmm.
but the only way he knows how to love is by raping you.
Oh Jesus!
Yeah, this is how I see statists.
What about just creating your own governments, like and just saying now? Well, sorry, not government, but why not just create Ancapistan and anyone who doesn't want to live there just moves out? Does there have to be a genocide?
but the statists won't let you do that.
That's because resources are scarce, and that includes land. Am I right?
Yeah, especially since Ancapistan would be rich, they would want to take it and nationalize all the industry in it,
Yeah,
or at least tax it. You know.
yeah. I think that I think when Iran tried to nationalize their oil, it was actually probably a good thing because it's not that you would want the private companies to not have access, but none of them were from Iran. In fact, they prevented Iran from doing that, and there was also a lot of U.S. governments that were there, U.S., British, French, and a lot of other um, governments that were all there. And I think that it would have eventually gone private. What do you think of that? You know, that was just a temporary thing to do to take the control away from foreign powers during the Iran crisis.
And then privatize it again so that it belongs to your people.
Yeah, it belongs to Iran.
Well, then
yeah.
you're not nationalizing them. You're taking them away and giving it to someone else. That's not nationalizing it.
Well, they were going to nationalize it temporarily.
Yeah, of course, temporarily they would be in the state's care.
Yeah.
Well, that's theft.
Yeah, but
are you sure that by exchanging the owners, you're gonna have as good of a management as you had before, and it will not all, lower the production and lower your income and your quality of life?
I think so, because the thing is, they were getting kind of none of the money. They were getting like barely anything at all. The people of Iran, and it was the Iranian oil. It was their property, but they, and they were trying to use it, but they but they got bought out and everything. I think that it would have worked because eventually people would have started to learn how to refine the oil correctly, and I think that would at least allow the people to have ownership over it. To get more to, because most of the workers, other than the engineers at these places, were Iranian. But they didn't.
I doubt it. I'm pretty sure they were Europeans.
No, there were plenty of there were Europeans, but they were up in the highest of the high areas. A lot of the middlemen and lower workers were all that. And the thing is, they weren't allowed to own the oil that belonged to that nation. I think that was kind of wrong. I think that
I'm not fully sure because I know about Iraq.
Yeah.
What happened in Iraq with Saddam Hussein trying to modernize the country?
Mm-hmm.
There was they had an ice cream factory.
Mm-hmm.
While the Europeans were running it, it was working fine. As soon as they left, they had to be called back a week later because it all stopped.
Yeah.
So I'm not so sure.
Well, that depends.
Even if you look at their electricity in many places of the world, like in India, you need to have a generator because you don't know when the power will go off.
Yeah.
Same thing happened in South Africa. I heard from someone who lives there that the blacks started to take over the energy sector.
Oh, I know about that.
And they had to like invest some money into it, but I don't know what the fuck they did with the money because they didn't invest it, and now you have power outages regularly. And it was funny because I saw on TV a commercial about South Africa talking about its new modernized infrastructure. Yeah, bullshit.
No, I know about all that, but that's because the black majority there isn't native. First off, the whites are more native than they are because they were there before because the natives of South Africa got along with the Europeans, but they were wiped out by the Zulus and a bunch of other warring tribes that invaded there.
The South Africans are dead. The white ones are gonna die.
I think they are. It's so sad. I don't want.
And afterwards, this will be a wake-up call for the rest of the Europeans.
Well, yeah. I don't want them to die off, but it's probably going to happen.
It's going to happen, and then the rest of the Europeans will rise up. Man, there's going to be so much blood on the streets.
Personally, I'd be happy creating a giant corporation and secretly using the money to arm all the whites.
They are fairly armed. They even have solutions when they run out of ammo using compressed air. But if the fighting breaks out, they will win initially, but they'll be just surrounded by black corpses everywhere. And more will come. Another wave is going to come, and another one. And they are much better at fighting them than the blacks.
I know.
No doubt.
They're outnumbered.
Yeah, they're very outnumbered.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's sad. The thing is, I'm hoping that they learned how to use milling machines to make those guns. Like you said, you can make full autos out of, like, you know, you can just mill them out. And I'm hoping they've been doing that. I think they have. But, you know, the saddest thing is, let's be honest, the biggest reason why they're all failing is because it's a communist nation at this point. Well, socialist, not full communist, but very, very close.
Mm.
ANC is a very
another thing I've heard from that guy is the blacks, if they have a government, it's gonna be so fucking corrupt.
Oh,
I mean, he told me when whites were in power, they had good salaries, right? You were the presidents and everything, but when the black people started to occupy those positions, their salaries got way huge, way bigger.
Yeah. And there's all sorts of infighting even within the non-whites. You know that, right? Like, so many different groups. Like the
I mean, even in the US, blacks kill each other en masse.
Yeah. I mean, in the US, it's a bit of a different reason. You know, it's always good to look at the reason. You know, their families are destroyed.
Sorry, but I only see one reason. They're black. I'm sorry.
I don't think that's the full reason. I think there's more nuance in that.
No, because they have the same crime rate in Brazil and in other places in the world. So no, I think it's them.
I think you got to look at it. I think you got to, you know, I see what you mean, and I think there's a problem there. But I think the problem with that is it's kind of like the wage gap myth. You know, if you only look at the results, it kind of obscures the reason. You know, I see the results being all the same, like in the U.S., like, you know, the wage gap, women get paid less than men. But then when you look at why, it kind of makes the wage gap non-existent. It's just an earnings gap. Same thing with, I think, black crime. I don't think there's a one-size-fits-all reason why there's a lot more black crime around the world. I think that when you look at it, you know, if we took away the Section 8 housing and all the welfare from blacks, you know, maybe did a little grandfathering, but mostly just ripped it right out. And we also we gave police the ability to police them the way they should be policed, like anyone else. And we stopped breaking up the black nuclear family, and then I'm sure plenty of private corporations that train people on how to be job ready would get in there right away. I think that we would go back to what black people were before welfare came around. I mean, crime was a lot lower back then, and black people were a lot wealthier in the U.S. back before the civil rights movement, actually.
I would really I talked about the law. I think I made clear what the law is. It would cover every situation, actually, if you really looked at it. The thing is with the justice system, we don't have a justice system either today. Like, imagine if I beat you up, the police catch me, what do?
They put you in jail.
Yeah, and you have to pay for my stay in jail, right?
Yeah. Oh, wow.
You call that justice?
Everyone kind of pays collectively.
That is not justice. Justice is not punishing criminal. Justice is for the victims. Because on my legal basis, I would have to pay you reparations, right, for the damage I caused you.
Well, they could also force you to at gunpoint and say, hey, you beat him up, and now whatever money you have saved up in your bank account, it's going to his hospital bills. And even though some of his money is already going to prisons, it's kind of a collective way of punishing and deterring crime by giving a punishment to said criminal and to get a menace out. Because if you're willing to beat me up unjustly, you probably would be willing to beat all sorts of people up unjustly.
Yeah, but this rehabilitation is not really working, is it? I mean, putting people in jail does them no good. Instead, what you should do is have the aggressor compensate the victim. If it was an accident, that's all you have to do.
Yeah.
If it was some evil, malicious intent, then you have to re-educate these people. Now, maybe I steal from you because I'm hungry.
Yeah.
Then you would put me in jail. But what I would see you should do with these people, you kind of auction them up. So you offer them on sale. So what are you selling them for? Some prisons will bid money for them. The money that if they win the auction, that money goes to the victim, and the prisoner is taken in and put to work, given training and things like that. So when he comes out of it, he paid his debt.
Yeah.
And he now
there's a problem. There's a problem there.
He's able to be a functional member of society. Maybe he may even decide to stay in that jail and continue working and earning money,
Yeah, but there is a problem. Private prisons have been proven to actually be ineffective because of the fact that they'll make the conditions so bad that it forces the prisoners to sometimes do things that will make them stay there longer. In order,
of course, because they're funded by taxation. I mean, why would I do a good job or any job at all if I'm going to be paid anyway? I saw the same thing happening with schools, right? Like the schools would keep really, really awful kids violent kids inside, because for every kid they receive government funding.
Yeah, but I mean,
in this case, the case I presented to you, the prison pays up front, and now the prison has an incentive to reintegrate these individuals.
Well, yeah, but there is an incentive to keep them there, because if you keep them there, you could also say that there are some people who cannot be integrated, like complete sociopaths, and then this could increase the drug war, because you could say maybe like they could try to manipulate people by telling them people who sell drugs are unable to be rehabilitated. We need to keep them out of the public, and so bring them to this private prison. We keep the prisoners here longer and longer and longer and longer. And then they'll just keep adding on more. They'll just keep trying to trick the public into thinking that more and more things are unrehabilitatable, even if there's something as small as hitting your girlfriend after she punched you in the nuts.
Yes, but there's also the private security, right? They are paid to lower crime, so they will actually go and check. This would all be. You can always audit a prison, right, and see what are you doing here? What am I paying you for?
I can see that to a certain degree, but even then, I always fear the idea of monopoly. One company doing it so well, and then just becoming a government unto themselves.
Yeah, but if a company is doing it so well, what issue do you have with it?
Well, because eventually they might get so big that their brand makes up for laziness, and eventually they stop doing as good. Let's be honest, McDonald's.
Yeah, and when they stop being good, competition will destroy them.
It might not, maybe not right away. Brand recognition and manipulating the system and how things do, which some companies will maybe keep them around and keep the illusion of them being good until they just grab all the power for themselves.
Brand recognition, that incident on an airplane, they had to remove a guy, and in the process they punched his face. He was all bleeding. They lost billions in stock value, and everyone on the corporation's board of directors, well, they are responsible for that.
Yeah, but even
that airline may never recover. They lost so much.
But even that was United Airlines, and they were already kind of destroying their reputation as it was. They weren't that well liked of an airline to begin with. So
yeah, but it took just one incident for them to lose billions. They weren't losing billions before, right?
Well, that could be considered kind of like the straw that broke the camel's back. That could be there was plenty of stuff leading up to it, but maybe the reason why I didn't lose as much is because sometimes it takes one big incident after many smaller ones to make people wake up. Like, people slowly opened up their minds to the idea that, this particular group of people may be malicious.
I just want I want to know if I want to start my own airline in the US, do I need a permit?
I think you do.
Oh, so
Not sure.
they're shielded from competition, aren't they?
What?
I mean, if I need a permit, the government may refuse it because the corporation paid the politician.
But you also might need it just because, you know, you're flying in the air and you could damage other people.
No, I do not need a permit for that.
I don't know. I'd have to check back. But the overall point I'm trying to make is that one company could essentially install itself as a government.
But it never happened.
Well,
I don't have time. I don't have time. Like I could explain it in detail so everyone understands it. But Stefan Molyneux has a video. I could give it to you and you put it in the description.
Sure.
That absolutely demolishes this idea that you're gonna have a monopoly and they're going to control our lives. No, I'm gonna give you this link. Everyone can watch it. It goes in detail.
Okay, send it to me on messages and whatever. But dude, I really got to go. We actually extended it way longer than I was supposed to. But hey, thanks for talking to me. Personally, I wouldn't stop you from making Ancapistan. If you wanted to make a certain place, I would just watch as it failed.
Yeah, and I wouldn't stop you from. I wouldn't take your government away if you want to keep it.
Yeah, not you as long as you're allowed to do your own thing, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, I didn't get to talk about everything I wanted to talk about, but okay, maybe some other time.
What was that? What was that last part you wanted to talk about? So we know.
Oh, I wanted to talk further about the law enforcement, and the military in Pakistan, as well as borders.
That's all right. I mean, look, you did get into some pretty good detail, but it sounds like an entire podcast onto itself. It really does.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, yeah.
You know, you can't always fit everything in. It's like if you want to talk about, Europe in general, you can't focus on Warsaw politics. You can't focus on Berlin politics or Rome. It's just too broad.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. But hey, thank you for coming on. I'll let you know maybe sometime next month we can try this again. What do you say?
Yeah, sure. Maybe Warski will give us another chance.
Yeah.
Yeah, and a better link this time because I was not allowed to connect, and none of you were replying to my messages.
Yeah, I think that Andy is the one who has to give you the link. Otherwise, I think it's designed to not let you in, so that way people can just say, "Hey, I got the link. Let's send it to everyone."
Yeah. So it was his fault.
What? Kind of my fault. Kind of my fault. I should.
Yeah.
Yeah. Anyway, have a good one.
Okay, you too. Take care.
Bye.
Bye.